Stacey Snider is a very important movie executive who, one of the most important in the industry, who starts the book clubs, and she's at dinner at the Hamburger Hamlets. It's on Sunset and Doheny. And she actually gives my fictional character, my narrator, Anne Rosenbaum, the idea of doing the book clubs. Stacey is a reader. Everybody that knows her talks about how you are at a party with Stacey Snider, and Stacey actually is talking about the books that she's read and very seriously and this sort of thing. Nina Jacobson, who's incredibly important, she's the only person in Hollywood from whom I have requested permission and got permission to put a quote in there. I was talking about this with her. This was in her office on the Universal lot. My friend Bill Robinson connected us, and she was asking me about the novel. I'd been asking her a question. She said, "What's the novel about?" And I said, "Well, you know, the novel's about this central problem with Judaism and the fact that it is separatist and tribalist and has a racialist component to it, and what that would mean if a person married outside the tribe, married a non-Jew, and then a crisis happened and went back there." As soon as she figured, and she said, "Well, what are you saying about it?" And I'm saying, well, ultimately, to me, the religion doesn't work. It doesn't cohere because I'm a humanist and I'm a universalist. I don't believe in the groups. She got it very quickly, and I was sort of waiting. She said, "Oh," I was waiting to see what she said. She said, "Well, of course." And I said, "Well, what do you mean, of course?" And she said, "We divide ourselves from them, and they divide us from them." And she said, "What? We're right and they're wrong?" And I love that quote. They're also real people in New York. They're very different, but a very different role from the people in the real people in Los Angeles. The people in New York are virtually all New Yorker writers. And the reason is, I love the New Yorker. I read it a lot. Nobody bats 1,000, but it's a terrific magazine, very serious magazine. And they talk about things that are very important to my characters. David Remnick has taken Israel as his beat and writes very serious, very thoughtful pieces about Israel. And I think that, and has a perspective, one that I don't necessarily agree with in all ways. And I think that there's a scene in there where he says something that I would not have said, and I think reveals something about the way that he thinks about Israel that I thought was interesting and reveals a problem, I think, in Jewish thinking about Israel and Israelis and Jews vis-a-vis everyone who is not Jewish. Alex Ross, for example, is another very important character. He is the New York Times music critic, serious music critic, terrific writer, absolutely brilliant. And Alex has written several pieces that are very pertinent to the novel and to my characters. He has written about Strauss and Wagner, who were Wagner in particular was clearly anti-Semitic. Strauss, where it's very complicated. And you know that Wagner is not performed in Israel now because of his quotes about Jewishness in music and how that was destroying the music, this sort of thing. Now, and Alex points out, if the idea of Jewishness being inherent in the music, which and Alex would be the first to tell you, is this astonishing, great work of art. How can you then turn around and say, well, there's anti-Semitism in the music? You can't put your finger on it, but it's there, infesting the chords. And Alex says, I don't think you get to do that. And it is the taking of art and making great art and really sort of moving it away from these things toward a more universal, more humanist view of art, and not taking all our, as Kipling would say, all of our old ologies with us. One of the real characters, who is also a New Yorker writer, to whom I've given a very short scene, is actually one of the most important. She makes one of the most important, trenchant comments in this. Nancy Franklin did a review of Arthur Miller's All My Sons, and she was talking about the ways in which, if you compare All My Sons to Death of a Salesman, it really poses a question. She said, you can identify with the lead character, the husband and father in All My Sons, and she said, he's committed this horrible crime, and yet we somehow can see ourselves in him. We think we could make that mistake. But she said, nobody, probably not even some failed Jewish traveling salesman, would see themselves in Willy Loman, this failed Jewish traveling salesman. And she said it calls into question a fundamental it raises a fundamental question, not only in art but in ourselves. Are we able to see ourselves as we truly are? And I think that Nancy put it beautifully. And of course, I've taken that, put her in a scene with my fictional character, and adapted her and her article in the service of the novel.